Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the October 1st, 2014 meeting of the Frederick County Planning Commission, and I hope you will join us in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We have no changes to the agenda.
Madam Chair, move adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. We have minutes of the August 20th, 2014 meeting.
Madam Chair, move for adoption of the August minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We also have a copy of the work session minutes that were held on September the 3rd with the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission.
Move for adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Mr. Unger, Sanitation Authority.
No report.
No report. Okay, we have the Transportation Committee, Mr. Oates.
Yes, ma'am, we met on September 22nd, had a few items on the agenda. One was a request from Winchester Western for a support of a crossing, for maintenance shed up at Gore, just down from the sand mine. The group voted in favor of that. And then Mr. Greg Sanders from VDOT came and gave us a pretty lengthy discussion of signal lights and how they're programmed and where they're trying to go in the future to have basically a camera at every single stoplight, so they can adjust it back in Edinburgh or Harrisonburg if there's problems. And then there was 2 revenue sharing applications, and both of those were voted to move forward.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moan with the Comp Plan Committee is not with us this evening. Was there any of the commission members? Yes. Mr.
Yes,
Oates?
ma'am, I attended. The meeting was a discussion of the South Frederick area plan that we'll be looking at tonight.
Okay, that's great, thank you. We have a representative from the city of Winchester. Would you report, please, sir?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me this evening. We had a few main items on our agenda this past month. The one, it was something fairly minor, but it was actually the second time we've seen something over the period of about 3 or 4 months. It was we did a conditional use permit for an extended stay lodging, which is the second one, like I said, within about the last 3 or 6 months. The second item we had that was fairly substantial in size was a rezoning request for 7.7 acres of land on Cedar Creek Grade, just when you turn off Valley Avenue. Originally, it was supposed to be set for a adult lodging, adult lodging apartment complex type of thing. But now it looks like it's going to be slated for nursing home and extended care facilities. And then lastly, we had the big one, which was the request from the city of Winchester for a preliminary subdivision approval for subdivision right-of-way dedication for Meadow Branch Avenue, going all the way out towards, actually for the new John Kerr in part of our time, but that was their main items that we had to focus on.
Thank you, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next to you, Mr. Hess from the Board of Supervisors.
Good evening. Since the last regular Planning Commission meeting on August the 20th, the Board of Supervisors has held one meeting, and that was on September 20th. The Planning Commission items on the agenda at that board meeting were holding the public hearing on the comprehensive plan amendments to add the location of the proposed 4th high school into the sewer and water service area. Following the public hearing, the board approved the amendment. The next item was approval. The board approved the waiver request for the right renovations on the southeastern side of the intersection of Dal J Circle and Anderson Avenue, which enabled the subdivision request to take place. Item number 3, the board agreed to move the Southern Frederick Area Plan Amendment forward for public hearing, and that item's scheduled before the Planning Commission tonight. Number 4, the board discussed the proposed amendments to the landscaping ordinance. After some discussion, staff was asked to schedule a work session for further discussion and possible revision to the proposed changes. The 5th Planning Commission item, the board agreed to move forward to public hearing the proposed changes to the zoning district buffer ordinance to permit buffer waivers if the adjoining land would not require a buffer and the adjacent property owner concurred. And the public hearing before the Planning Commission is on tonight's agenda. And finally, the board agreed to move forward for public hearing the proposed changes to the zoning ordinance to modify the screening requirements for outdoor storage areas. And that item is also scheduled for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, very much. This is the time on our agenda when we ask anyone in the audience who would like to speak to us on anything but a public hearing or the commission's action items or discussions. So if there's anything new or that you would like to speak with us about, we'd like to hear. Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. Our first item is the citizen comment portion. Our first item is a public hearing, and it's for the Southern Frederick Area Plan. This is the plan encompasses the area generally east of 81 to the Clark County line, and from Frederick in the south. Mr. Ruddy will take us through this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. And of course, we're here for the Southern Frederick Area Plan, the public hearing, which is a culmination of a good amount of time and effort on behalf of a lot of people here. What I'll do is I'll take a few minutes to run through an overview of what the Southern Frederick Area Plan is for the benefit of anybody who may be paying attention here this evening, and then be able to answer any questions that may be outstanding from the Planning Commission. Of course, it's an amendment to the 2030 Comprehensive Plan, which was approved back in 2011. It is one of the area plans. The plan consists of 4 parts, much like the components of the Comprehensive Plan. It covers urban areas and residential development, transportation, business development, and historical, natural resources, and community facilities. The text of the plan is probably about 20 pages in length and describes a variety of different land uses and different components of the plan. Of course, it's supported by 4 maps, which are used to illustrate the text of the plan. And those maps, again, cover, as I go through them here on the screen to your left, the first one, land use, and within the urban areas, of course, that's the business development and the residential land uses. The second map is a transportation map, which identifies those key road connections that support the planning effort in this part of the county, namely Warrior Drive Extended, 277, the South Frederick Parkway, to name but a few. The third map is an enhancement, if you will, on the transportation, which also has the trail connections through that part of the county identified. One of note that was added to this particular plan that wasn't there before is one that surrounds Lake Frederick and connects Lake Frederick to Shenandoah, a trail system known as the Shenandoah Lake Frederick Trail System. And that's down in the southeastern part of the plan. And the final map, of course, identifies those historic resources, natural resources, and community facilities. To mention a couple, of course, we've got Shenandoah Park and the high school and several other park sites located, and a new fire and rescue center identified in the general vicinity of White Oak Road and Route 277. Obviously, the plans themselves, are quite detailed and cover a large area, but as you get into certain areas, then you can see some more details, in particular the park that I just previously mentioned. So again, the text of the plan is supported by those 4 maps, and the 4 maps cover quite a large area. When we had the work session with the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission, I think folks were very much in tune with what was occurring here with the plan and the input that we received to get it to this point. But it was requested that we provided a little bit more illustration and clarification on a couple of items. And so what we did is forwarded to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors and made available a little summary that I'll briefly touch on right now, which attempted to do just that, answer a couple of questions that were raised. And the first one was that if we could see a map showing a close-up of those main areas of change from the original 277 plan. And what we did when we looked at it is we identified that there were 2 real areas that had changed, and the first one being the Lakeside Tasker Road area, so we're focused in on that area, and the second one being the White Oak northern entrance to the Lake Frederick area. So again, back in 2007, 2008, the 277 plan was created for the first time. This Southern Frederick plan builds upon that, and those are the two areas where we see some changes that have occurred from the original plan. Focusing on those two areas again, we've provided a before and after map showing the changes for those proposed areas. The first one in Lakeside Tasker Road area, as you can see, if you will, on the top one, it's primarily residential and a land use character, as it is before. And the bottom one, the after plan land use, if you will, includes some commercial neighborhood village focal points in areas such as R-Trip, Bowman Library at Lakeside, and of course the Warrior and Tasker Road. The second area of changed land use is down, as we mentioned, at White Oak Road and northern entrance to Lake Frederick in the future. And the structure of the area is very much the same, but what we've noticed is there's just a different orientation in that area. So there's a little less industrial adjacent to the residential. It encourages more commercial and neighborhood village in that area. But that, again, hopefully provided some clarification as to that northern entrance where 277 and the Southern Frederick Parkway come together. It provided a different orientation to the commercial and industrial land uses with the inclusion of some more neighborhood commercial residential. What the board also requested of us was to just identify those areas that were just residential and those areas which were more commercial. So taking the same tack, if you will, looking at the Lakeside area, the map that we provided, this one in particular shows the residential land uses. And again, you can see that it's predominantly residential in that area with some higher density, slightly higher density. It's still very much the character of what's out there today. And then with some mix of neighborhood commercial residential uses around the library, at the R-Trip project, and again at Warrior Drive. So that's the residential side of that area. If we look at the commercial side of that area, you can see the three real focal points that I just mentioned where that neighborhood commercial has been introduced into the area. So moving from the Lakeside area down to, again, the White Oak Road, Lake Frederick, you can see from the residential side of things as we look at that map, there isn't much residential beyond what exists there today with the planned Lake Frederick development. And of course, in the northern side of that, we have some additional residential that's introduced with that neighborhood village. Predominantly, that area remains, as you can see on the map to your left, commercial, industrial, with mixed-use office industrial being included in there. Again, as the county is, if you will, a center of one of the centers of economic development for the county. So hopefully that overview and clarification in those areas provided a little bit more insight into the bigger map, and ultimately results in that land use plan map that is on your screen to your left, and of course the land use, the transportation, and the natural resources, historic resources, and community facility maps. They are what would be amended with this comprehensive plan change. Would be remiss if we didn't touch on some of the public participation that happened through this project with several meetings down at Ayla Middle School with folks participating, forming the working groups and the facilitator groups as we had done previously. And again, that was used to success, I think, to get some new people involved in this process. Some additional public review meetings and some outreach to get additional feedback occurred. But as you mentioned, ultimately we came back to a work session with the Board of Supervisors and a discussion at the Planning Commission and Board, and got the direction to move forward through this public hearing process. So that's where we are. We're seeking a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors here this evening. The Comprehensive Plan Committee did review this at their last meeting and recommended that it be endorsed. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Commission may have or offer any additional clarification if any is needed.
Questions, Mr. Ruddy? Questions, I know we've seen this a number of times, but I I really think it looks great. Those maps that you showed us, the last ones, will not be part of, in the appendix. That's just for information purposes. Is
That's
that correct?
correct. The 4 maps that will be included are the 4 larger maps that we described. Those additional ones are just to support it and to clarify the main areas of change.
Any questions of Mike? Righty, this,
We're good.
yes, okay.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak regarding this Southern Area Plan? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. I will share with you that I think that the work that was done, particularly the text, Mike, is just superb. And I don't know, I think with going through and redoing the comprehensive plan, I don't know, was it 4 years ago, close to 5? That some of the details here, particularly within the transportation section and the business development section, are just excellent and could apply to the county as a whole. So my request is, let's keep these in our back pocket so that when we get to the point where we're revising the comprehensive plan, that these might be good additions to those sections. All righty. Let's see, our next item. Oh, pardon me, we have to vote, don't we? Is there a recommendation?
I move that we recommend approval of the Southern Frederick Area Plan.
Is there a second? Any other comments? Okey-doke. Would you like to start, sir?
Dunlap, yes. Triplett, yes.
Bolden, yes.
Thomas, yes.
Oates, yes.
Crockett, yes.
Manuel, yes.
Ambrogi, yes.
Marston, yes.
Augur, yes.
And the chair votes yes. This will go to the Board of Supervisors on, gee whiz, November the 12th.
Madam Chairman, I'll need to recuse myself from the next 2 items.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Our next 2 items are also public hearing items. They are ordinance amendments. The first is Chapter 165 zoning, Article 2, supplementary use regulations, parking buffer, and regulations for specific uses. These really are a change to allow for a zoning district buffer waiver when planned use is shown in the comprehensive plan is compatible. Mrs. Perkins, it's yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the commission. As you stated, this is a request to revise the zoning ordinance to include a zoning district buffer waiver that allows the Board of Supervisors to either eliminate or modify a buffer if the adjoining land use to a commercially or industrially zoned property is designated in the adopted comprehensive policy plan for a use which would not require a buffer. Now, the waiver, as drafted, would require support from the adjoining property owner that would be impacted. This was just a minor sketch that was included in your agenda just to really show 2 pieces of property that, one being zoned hypothetically M1, the adjoining property would be zoned RA, rural areas with a residential land use. The buffer that would be required between these 2 properties would be a Category C, even though, say, the RA zoned property would be comprehensively planned to become industrial as well at a future point. So this buffer waiver is intended to address that buffer. So the DRC discussed this at their June 26th meeting, and they sent it forward to the Planning Commission. The Commission discussed this at your August 20th meeting, the Board at their September 10th meeting, and they sent it forward to public hearing. So tonight we are seeking recommendation from the Planning Commission to the Board of Supervisors. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mrs. Perkins? Any at all? All righty, thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak, we're going to open the public hearing on this item, which we've described to you earlier. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address us? Anyone? Well, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. I would, Candace, may I bring to the Commission's attention that there's minor changes to the text?
Right, I did add that one word that you requested, yes.
Okay, thank you. Well,
Well, Madam Chair, if there's no comments, I think this is a good idea. We've talked about it a number of times. So I'd recommend approval of the ordinance amendment to the zoning district buffer waiver option.
any other comments? Mr.
Madam
Unger?
Chairman?
Yes. Marston, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Manuel, yes.
Thomas, yes.
Bolden, yes.
Triplett, yes. Dunlap, yes.
And the chair votes yes. This also will go to the Board of Supervisors on the 12th of November. Let's see. Okay. The next item is also a change to the zoning ordinance, Chapter 165, and it deals with outdoor storage and processing. These revisions are dealing with the screening between two properties. And again, Mrs. Perkins.
Again, thank you. This is another request that we received to modify the zoning ordinance regarding the screening requirements for outdoor storage areas. Now, the current ordinance requires that all outdoor storage areas be completely screened from the view of roads, streets, as well as surrounding properties by a fence, wall, or some type of 6-foot opaque screening. Now, again, this is another one of staff's details that was included in your agenda. It shows two hypothetical properties that both have outdoor storage lots, and then the red bubbled area would be the screening that would be required with this area between the two outdoor storage lots is the area in question. Really, the ordinance is meant to not have to require outdoor storage to screen from outdoor storage. So in addition to the outdoor storage screening eliminations, there's also a few minor changes such as the surface materials for the lots as well as some landscaping exemptions. So the DRC discussed this at their June meeting, sent it forward to the Planning Commission. Commission discussed this at your August 20th meeting, the board at their September 10th meeting. They've sent it forward to public hearing. So with that, I'd be glad to see any questions, and we are seeking a recommendation to the board.
Questions of Mrs. Perkins? None. Thank you. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to us regarding this ordinance amendments? Anyone at all? Well, then we'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion? Any comments?
Madam Chair, we've talked about this also. I think this makes sense. I move that we recommend approval of the ordinance amendment to the screening requirement for outdoor storage areas.
Second.
Any other comments? I see none. Mr. Dunlap?
Dunlap, yes. Triplett, yes.
Bolden, yes.
Thomas, yes.
Crockett, yes. Manuel, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Marston, yes.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. This also will go to the board on the 12th. All right, our next item is an action item for the Planning Commission. It's rezoning 03-14 Governor's Hill, submitted by William H. Gordon and Associates to request a minor proffer revision associated with rezoning 1008. This revision is related to the transportation section of the proffers. The property is located approximately 1 mile east of Interstate 81 on the south side of Millwood Pike, Route 50 East, across from Sulphur Springs Road, Route 655, and the Raven subdivision, and are identified as property identification numbers 64-A86 and 64-A87 in the Shawnee Magisterial District. Mr. Ruddy.
Thank you again, Madam Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. The properties for which the rezoning is being requested, or the proffered condition amendment, are identified on the screen to your left in your agenda. There are specifically two properties, parcel 86 and 87, within the Governor's Hill rezoning application. And as you mentioned, it is a very minor revision that relates specifically to the transportation section of the proffers. Again, it only applies to those two parcels for which the request is in front of you. Those two parcels are, of course, part of the broader Governor Hills project that was zoned R4 back in 2005 for a combination of commercial uses and residential land uses. As you noted, it's just north of the Winchester Regional Airport and south of Route 50. Two projects that already exist within the Governor's Hill project are, of course, the county's public safety building and the Virginia National Guard Armory. The specific change deals with, again, 15.2, which changes the amount of office space that may be developed on the property utilizing access to the existing completed portion of Coverstone Drive. As you see, the within the quite lengthy proffer statement, that 115.2 currently allows 200,000 square feet of office space to be developed using the existing section of Coverstone Drive. So the applicant is seeking to increase that to 300,000 square feet of office space. One of the net results of that is that the improvement that would be triggered by that 200,000 figure benchmark would be the design and construction of Phase 1 of Coverstone Drive from Route 50 back into a small point B within the Governor's Hill Master Development Plan. So, of course, the phased transportation program is as it is, and if you remember back in 2013, the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors allowed a minor modification to the site plan, to the rezoning at that time. The road completion of Coverstone Drive out to Route 50 is still guaranteed to be completed by 2025. So again, that was the 2013 amendment. This doesn't change the ability to complete the road. And again, Coverstone Drive I've shown on the screen with the approved generalized development plan, master development plan for the project. So the road is there's still a commitment and phasing there to complete the road. The drop dead is remaining to be 2025, that date within the proffer statement. Again, the change within this proffer that's being requested today is simply in the square footage allowance for office uses from 200,000 to 300,000 to be able to use the existing Coverstone Drive 4-lane section that is currently in front of the public safety building. Staff this evening will be seeking a recommendation from the Planning Commission, and of course it's not a public hearing item, with it being a minor proffer revision that doesn't affect the use and density of the already approved Governor's Hill project. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them for the Commission. And representing the application here this evening is Mr. Mark Dick.
Has anyone got a question for Mike? Any at all? Makes sense? This is not a public hearing. Thank you, Mike. And because the applicant is here, does anyone have any questions for the applicant? Anyone? Thank you. We need to make a recommendation.
You need a vote? If there's no further comments, I move for approval of rezoning 03-14.
Second.
Any other discussion? Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Marston, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Manuel, yes.
Crockett, yes.
Votes yes.
Thomas, yes.
Molden, yes.
Triplett, yes. Dunlap, yes.
And the chair votes yes. This also will go to the Board of Supervisors on the 12th of November.
Madam Chairman, I'll need to recuse myself from the next item.
Thank you. This is an information and discussion item for us, and Mrs. Perkins will help us. It's the Black Diamond Site Plan requirements.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the Commission. The site plan before you is for a property that is called Black Diamond. It's located in the Stonewall Industrial Park on McGee Road, close to the cul-de-sac. Now, in an effort to keep the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors apprised of development activities within the Route 37 right-of-way, we take all the site plans as well as subdivisions to both the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors, just so we can inform everyone of how these are going to impact the right-of-way for 37. So the site plan does show buildings within the 37 right-of-way. This is the location map for the property. You see here's the site outlined in black, McGee Road that runs along the frontage. And this is the site plan that was included in your agenda. As you can see, McGee Road runs along the frontage. And you have the 37 right-of-way that runs in this area. So you do have the buildings located within the right-of-way with this plan. So with that, I could take any questions. As I stated, this is an informational item only, so no action is necessary.
Any questions of Mrs. Perkins? Yes, Mr. Unger.
What's the solution, Candace? I mean, if this gets approved, That's where 37 is supposed to go. What happens then?
I mean, unfortunately, the ordinance can't require them to dedicate the right-of-way. They have every right to use the land because there are no adopted plans for the right-of-way there, for the actual design of the property. So at this point, they're allowed to proceed with construction, and if the county does in the future go forward with constructing Route 37, and they choose to keep this alignment, we would have to purchase the property at some point in the future.
Well, there'll probably be a building on it then, though.
Correct.
Anyone else? This is not the first one of these that we've seen. And my curiosity really is saying, what does the rest of this loop look like?
Madam
Yes.
Chairman, I think in this case, if this goes forward and Route 37 goes forward in this alignment, as you say, the county would be on the hook to purchase the property, which, in my view, would be improved, and it was going to cost the taxpayers a lot more money to acquire the property to complete the roadway. So I find that a bit problematic myself, based on my past land use experience. Usually I find that for situations, if you've got a comprehensive plan road, that right-of-way is generally reserved or otherwise set aside. So to avoid these types of problems or future problems. So if the roadway is not set in stone right now, our hands might be tied, but that's my concern.
My understanding is this site plan does not require approval. Is that correct?
Right, there's no action on this item. The site plan it's an administrative function. So once they've met all their county agency approvals, we have to proceed with approval.
Madam Chair, if this is a discussion item, though, I understand, because I feel the need for 37 as desperately as anyone else. We've been talking about this for a very, very long time, but my heart still has to go out. Have him carry the burden of reserving this property if we're waiting so long for 37 to go through.
We don't have, 37 is not an approved project in anybody's budget at this point.
Exactly.
And yes, it would be, in a perfect world, it would be the optimum to reserve this land to build 37 in the future. But unless the county or somebody's willing to buy that land and reserve it, it's not reasonable to expect the owner of the property to not go ahead and use his land rights and build on it what he's allowed to build on it.
My sentiments exactly.
I just, it's not the right thing to do, but at this point, we don't have any other option, and there's no other choice. Because if we would try to deny this, it would essentially be a taking of his property, which would be a negative impact on the property owner. And that's not exactly what we want to do at this point, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're at the end of the agenda. I have just a couple of things, one of which is, I think you got the communication from Mike Chandler regarding the land use conference that's coming up. I hope some of you will have the opportunity to go. This is an excellent presentation and conference to experience, just to get back refreshed. And if you've got a notion to go, please see Eric. Next, we are we do not have an agenda for the meeting on December the 15th. And so we will need to cancel that. And then I just wanted to talk about something else after we do that. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I was just all tuned up saying November today. So it says October in my notes.
Move we cancel the October 15th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. Okay. The other thing that we want to do is to encourage you to retake a look at the minutes from the Board and Planning Commission work session on Heritage Commons. Staff is working with the applicant to get the materials that are necessary, to get all the materials that are necessary. And since there were so many things discussed on the 3rd, please look through those notes. If there's anything that you see that was on your mind or in your heart, please give the information to Eric, because he's diligently working on this side to get the applicant to the spot that he wants to be in. So I ask you for that. Yes.
Yeah, I've read the minutes a number of times, and I think they're accurate. The only thing that bothers me is, I'm not sure, and that it's probably, I shouldn't maybe even say this, but I'm not sure the developer heard what we were saying that night. And I'm not sure he heard the amount of concern that we were expressing. And the only thing I would say is, I'm not sure the minutes, and I don't know how we would express that in the minutes. I'm not sure the depth of our concern was understood by the developer.
If I can suggest, rather than have it as a public discussion, if you have any issues, come talk to staff and we'll work with the developer and make sure we address the.
I think that's it for this evening.
Move for adjournment.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Chuck,
Did you get to me?
glad you got to see me more.
Take a short and sweet.
Oh, what the hell?